Hi, it's Katrina. From being accidentally buried alive to a hospital that experimented on patients without their consent, here are 10 of the world's creepiest places. Number 10. St. George's Church, Czech Republic. In Lukova, a tiny town in the Czech Republic, there's an abandoned 14th century church filled with eerie white figurines, nicknamed the Ghosts of St. George's Church. The ghastly sculptures occupy the building's pews, stand in the doorways, and gather at the altar. Built around 1352, St. George's Church sits atop a hill in the small town of 708 residents, located roughly 2.5 hours outside of Prague. The church was abandoned after the roof caved in during a funeral in 1968, and the congregation began holding Mass outdoors, simply leaving the building as is and avoiding it due to the superstitious belief that it was haunted or cursed. The community eventually became interested in renovating the church but lacked the necessary funds to do so. In 2012, local artist Jakub Hadrava created the 32 life-sized sculptures that currently occupy the building, using his classmates as models by covering them in sheets and creating plaster casts of them. With their draped appearances, the figures resemble the German bohemians who once lived in the region and who were expelled from the Czech Republic after World War II. Thanks to Hadrava's creations, the church has become a popular tourist attraction and receives the funding it needs to carry out repairs and maintain the building. And while most people are excited to see the inside, a few have refused to go in, according to caretaker Peter Kokel, who said the spooked individuals couldn't get past peeking through the doorway. Are you brave enough to go inside? Do you think this place is cursed? Let me know in the comments below. Number 9. St. Albans Sanatorium, Virginia, USA. St. Albans Sanatorium, an abandoned mental hospital in Redford, Virginia that originally served as a Lutheran boys' school, is considered one of the most haunted locations in the eastern United States. Rumor has it that the staff that ran the building as a boys' school encouraged bullying, making for an unbearable learning environment that pushed a handful of students to suicide. In 1916, the building was repurposed as a psychiatric infirmary and advertised as a preferable alternative to other asylums throughout the country, with a rooftop garden, bowling alley, and a small farm. This was far from the reality at the St. Albans Sanatorium, where patients were brutally subjected to experimental treatments without their consent, and which often left them permanently disabled or worse, including lobotomies, insulin-induced comas, electroconvulsive therapy, and so-called hydrotherapy sessions, which involve draping cold, wet towels over a patient, leaving them to soak for up to days at a time. Very Arkham Asylum in Gotham City. Perfect for creating psychopathic nemesis for superheroes, don't you think? The staff was ill-equipped to deal with the facility's thousands of patients at any given time, making already bad conditions even worse. Not surprisingly, many patients committed suicide, and the declining institution finally closed in the 1990s. The move was long overdue, and some paranormal enthusiasts and investigators insist that not everyone has left the building. Many people report seeing apparitions, shadowy figures, and levitating objects, or hearing voices and other eerie noises, and the building itself carries a dark, depressing feel that is enough on its own to give someone the chills. Would you visit the St. Albans Sanatorium? Let me know in the comments below. I don't think I'm brave enough for that. Number 8. Takakonuma Greenland Amusement Park, Japan. Very little is known about Takakonuma Greenland Amusement Park, an abandoned theme park in Fukushima Prefecture. Tucked into a mountainous, rural area outside the city of Hobara, now known as Date, the park is reportedly impossible to find on any map. As the story goes, Takakonuma Greenland Amusement Park opened in 1973, only to be closed 2 years later, supposedly due to low ticket sales, and so the park could be renovated to better attract visitors. Meanwhile, locals allegedly claimed that multiple deaths on the rides were the true reason behind the park's closure. The establishment reopened in 1986, but it struggled to remain in business as it competed with newer, bigger, and better parks, such as Tokyo Disneyland, according to the abandoned carousel. Takakonuma Greenland closed for good in 1999, and its rides and other fixtures were simply abandoned. Urban explorers who have traveled to the site captured photographs of heavily decayed amusement park rides, including a rusted Ferris wheel and roller coaster, as well as a graffiti-covered entrance. Nature has reclaimed the park, with overgrowth invading the structures and rides. Nearly all the known pictures and videos of Takakonuma Greenland seem to come from curious adventurers, with little to no official photography or footage seeming to exist. Some people claim that the creepy and unknown aspects of the park are wildly played up, and that a lot of truths about the park become lost in translation due to cultural and linguistic misunderstandings. Also, many allege that there's apparently a well-documented history of the park, if you know where to look. While Takakonuma Greenland's history may be more explainable than we like to think, this does not make the post-apocalyptic looking place seem any less creepy. Number 7. Overtoun Bridge, Scotland. Since the 1960s, somewhere between 300 and 600 dogs have unexplainably leapt from Dumbarton, Scotland's Overtoun Bridge, leading locals to believe that paranormal activity is to blame for the canine's strange behavior. Around 50 dogs have tragically died as a result of this mystifying tendency, and dog walkers have reported seeing their animal companions becoming possessed and running full force towards the bridge's edge, sometimes plummeting to the rocks 50 feet below. Some stories go as far as claiming that dogs who survive their first plunge make a second attempt, and that they sometimes even climb up the bridge's wall before trying again. It would be easy to write off the claims of a few disturbed dog owners as being perhaps overly imaginative, especially since Dumbarton residents are known for their superstitious tendencies. But the verified history of dogs jumping off Overtoun Bridge raised widespread enough concerns to make international headlines and spark an investigation by the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Investigators walked away from the matter just as confused as they were when they first began looking into it. The most likely theory for why dogs jump off Overtoun Bridge is that they detect animal activity below using their superior sense of smell, compelling them to give chase in the direction that their noses take them. What do you think happens? Do you think this is real? Or perhaps there are supernatural forces there? Let me know in the comments below. In any case, it looks like you should always have your dog on a leash if you're going to cross a bridge. Number 6. Capuchin Monastery Catacombs, Sicily. From the outside, the Capuchin Monastery in Palermo, Sicily looks like any other building, but the inconspicuous structure houses 8,000 formally dressed mummies, who are openly displayed along the walls of the monastery's catacombs. National Geographic calls the place where the dead don't sleep, and says that in Europe, the desiccation and preservation of corpses is a particularly Sicilian affair. The corpses are in various states of decay, ranging from well-preserved to skeletal. The oldest corpse belongs to Silvestro da Giubio, a friar who passed away in 1599. He was joined by exclusively friars and priests, but as time went on, it expanded to benefactors and nobles. Rosalia Lombardo, who passed away in 1920 at just 2 years old, is one of the more recent additions to the catacombs. There are different rooms within the catacombs dedicated to different types of people, including one for religious figures, another for professionals, including doctors, and a room for women and children. The bodies appear to have mummified naturally, owing to the catacombs' dry atmosphere. Rosalia Lombardo, dubbed Sleeping Beauty, is extremely well preserved. The child looks almost as if she were only sleeping, with her own hair in curls lying around her in a bow. She died of pneumonia caused by the Spanish flu. Her grief-stricken father went to a famous embalmer and asked him to preserve his daughter. The embalming formula was kept a secret, and Rosalia is known throughout Sicily as a magical little angel. She seems just a breath away from coming alive, a tragic reminder of grief and loss. While scientists have learned a lot from the remains here, poking and prodding, the place remains quite spooky and full of mummies. Would you visit this place, or have you already? Let us know in the comments below. Number 5. Hanging Coffins of Sagada, Philippines. In the northern Philippine town of Sagada, members of the Igorot tribe provide their dead with cliffside burials, nailing their coffins to the rock. The tradition dates back over 2,000 years, long before the arrival of the Spanish, and continues to this day, although it's practiced on a much smaller scale than at other times throughout history. As part of the practice, the elderly carve their own coffins out of hollowed logs if they are able to. Otherwise, their families do it for them. When the person passes away, they are placed into the vessel, sometimes having their bones broken in the process in order to make them fit. Then the casket is taken to the inside of a cave or to a cliff face, where it is hung near the deceased individual's ancestors. As time wears on, the coffins fall off the cliffs, but many remain secured in their positions until they are well over a century old. The belief in this burial tradition stems from the philosophy that the dead will have an easier time reaching a higher power in the afterlife if they were laid to rest in high places. Visitors can view the coffins from afar, but are encouraged not to walk beneath them or touch them if they happen to get close enough to be able to do so. Reaching the site is difficult, requiring a 12 to 13-hour journey in the best of conditions, and becoming downright dangerous during the rainy season, when roads are often closed due to landslides. Number 4. Beelitz-Heilstätten Hospital, Germany. This hospital, located roughly 30 miles southwest of Berlin, Germany, was originally built as a tuberculosis sanatorium. Consisting of around 60 buildings, the enormous hospital complex first opened in 1898 and was once the world's largest treatment center for tuberculosis and other lung diseases. It served as a field hospital during World War I, and in 1916, Adolf Hitler was admitted for a leg wound he incurred at the Battle of Somme. Beelitz-Heilstätten was used as a field hospital again during World War II, this time for wounded Nazi soldiers. Red Army forces occupied the complex in 1945, and its use as a Soviet facility continued until 1994, several years after both the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union. Parts of the complex are still used today, according to Atlas Obscura, but the buildings remain largely abandoned, minus being a popular tourist destination and their occasional use as movie sets. The decaying buildings stand seemingly frozen in time, with their stunning, elegant architecture and haunting beauty standing in stark contrast to the dark historical chapters they represent. They've mostly been emptied, with the exception of a handful of items, including 2 pianos that were left behind. Visitors can access Beelitz-Heilstätten via a 70-foot-tall, 700-foot-long pathway called Tree and Time. Number 3. Recoleta Cemetery, Argentina. Located in Buenos Aires, Argentina, the Recoleta Cemetery is one of the world's most unusual burial places. In 1822, it was declared the city's first official public cemetery. Consisting of at least 6,400 graves, Recoleta is filled with unique burial structures of all imaginable architectural styles, including miniature Greek temples and Baroque cathedrals. Some of Argentina's wealthiest and most iconic people and families were laid to rest here, including the country's famous First Lady, Evita Perón, who passed away in 1952. Presidents, scientists, and other well-known figures are also buried at the Recoleta Cemetery, including one of Napoleon Bonaparte's grandchildren, Isabel Walowski Colonna. This place may seem more whimsical than creepy at first glance, but this isn't necessarily the case. Despite its reputation as one of the world's most beautiful cemeteries, it houses the disturbing burial of Rufina Cambaceres, a young woman who was accidentally buried alive after suffering a medical emergency and mistakenly being declared dead. Several days after she was laid to rest, a cemetery worker found that Rufina's casket had moved within the mausoleum. He initially assumed grave robbers were to blame, but upon further inspection, he noticed that parts of the casket were broken and scratched from inside, and Rufina's remains were covered in scratches and other injuries that she incurred while trying to free herself. The door to her mausoleum contains a statue of Rufina, which her mother reportedly created as an eerie testament to the fate she suffered. Number 2. Hill of Crosses, Lithuania. Crosses are normally not considered creepy, but they can be in certain circumstances. Take, for example, the Hill of Crosses in Lithuania, situated outside the city of Šiauliai. The city is home to thousands of crosses, which people have continuously placed there for roughly 2 centuries. Oddly, nobody knows the exact story of the site's origins. It dates back at least as far as 1850, but is thought to be even older. One legend holds that the Hill of Crosses may have served as a place for families to memorialize victims of revolts against Russia in 1831 and 1863, according to National Geographic. Another story claims that an apparition of the Virgin Mary holding baby Jesus appeared on the hill, and that she requested for people to leave crosses there. Religion was banned in Lithuania during the Soviet era, and in 1961, authorities bulldozed and burned the Hill of Crosses. But people kept returning and leaving crosses again, leading the government to destroy the site 4 more times. Religion has been practiced openly in Lithuania since the country gained its independence in 1991, and numerous organizations and volunteers work together to maintain the Hill of Crosses, which now contains over 100,000 of them. While the site may seem eerie at first glance, it stands in memory of Lithuania's great suffering during Soviet occupation and of people's unshakable devotion and hope through that very dark time. Number 1. Akodessewa Fetish Market, Togo. Known as the world's largest voodoo market, the Akodessewa Fetish Market in Togo is the place to go when you are suffering from an illness or financial or relationship troubles. If you are an animal lover or have a sensitive stomach, this place is definitely not for you. Here you can get everything you need to cast spells for healing and protection. Local people treat it as a type of pharmacy, a place where they can visit the shaman and get advice and a prescription. Most of the ingredients for spells are made from animal parts. The less disturbing products range from buffalo skulls to dead cobras, antelope horns, and crocodiles, while the more extreme selection includes dog heads, gorilla skulls, and chimpanzee paws. The prescription might be to rub ground-up chameleon parts and dead birds on your skin. Togo and Benin are where voodoo originally comes from, and this market is truly authentic. Despite European colonization and their efforts to stomp it out, half of the population still practices voodoo, known locally as Overtoun. The market is said to smell like death. Tourists are welcome and can consult with voodoo priests and priestesses who prescribe a mixture of ground-up animal parts, like I said, with maybe some herbs. This concoction is held to a fire and turned into a black powder, and traditionally the priest or priestess will make 3 cuts on the customer's chest or back and rub the mixture in. If you are not in the mood, you can buy a doll or apply the mixture to yourself without making a cut. While in the West, voodoo is quite misunderstood, it is a very big part of life in West Africa. Thanks for watching! Which of these places would you dare to visit? Or have you already? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. See you soon!